he wanted this fight for a long time, and the public want this fight. And
the first one, yeah. The hullabaloo and the legacy of their two fathers, Chris Eubank Jr. and Nigel Benn. I spent time with both of them, and I can tell you which one I prefer, which is Nigel. They couldn't have gone and done anything else, could they?
I think, let's be honest here, Deontay Wilder at the weekend, I thought was very, very poor.
We would end the year with a big Saudi card with AJ Wilder topping it. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, please. Alexander Usyk has not got better since then.
Usyk has not got better since fighting Daniel Dubois.
Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't mean he's improved. I think the two
It
fights...
got worse either, does it?
No.
This is his moment. I think this is the time where we actually fight. The world finds out how good Terence Crawford is. This is an entertainment business, and Jake Paul is going to fight at some point. Put him in with someone, and let's see what happens.
Hold on. He's talking about being a legitimate world title challenger, and put him in the top 20, the top 15. Let's see if you can really fight.
Welcome to episode 127 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. Joining us today is one of the most recognisable voices in boxing and the voice of DAZN, Adam Smith. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, both of you.
Fantastic. Hot weather we've got going on in this country, but we've also got some hot subjects. We're going to do a slightly different show today. We're going to start it off with some predictions. We've had a busy 6 months, but we've also got a lot of things going on in the next 6 months, and a lot of fighters with lots of challenges and things that are going on. So we want to start talking about some predictions. So we're going to start with you, Spence, and your first prediction. We've got an announcement that's just been made today, or recently, about
Eubank Jr. Benn 2 has been announced, September the 20th. Seen it all over social media. Interestingly, though, Chris Eubank Jr. hasn't posted anything about this yet, nor has Boxer and Ben Shalom. So, we take it as it is, that the fight is happening September the 20th. I think that Chris Eubank Jr. wins again.
Yeah, that's your prediction, isn't it?
Yeah, my prediction is that he wins again. But this all depends on what stipulations are put in place, as in, will they have the rehydration clause in there? Will they not have it in there? It's going to be made at 160,
the belief system is, I think it is, that is exactly the same contract, isn't it? It's exactly a mirror image of the first fight.
Yeah.
So with all that in mind, do you agree? I mean, we'll get into perhaps some mechanics of how, when and why someone can win or lose. But do you agree with the in principle assessment that it's Eubank again that's likely to be the victor in the outcomes?
Well, he won the first fight. And he won it 2 or 3 rounds, I thought. I thought he finished fantastically, even with the weight issues. I thought he gutted it out, Chris, actually, in a terrific fight. Let's not forget how good it was in April. Contracted rematch, as you said, exactly the same. I think I'd like to have seen it possibly at 162, 163.
Was that as much to do with the fact that Conor doesn't hit as hard as possibly he needed to unseat Chris Eubank?
When he believed he hit hard enough and didn't take advantage of that, and he'll get that confidence going into the September rematch. Look, I think it will be made again at 160. I'd liked maybe a little bit more wiggle room for Chris. However, he'll be 6 months older. He'll start favourite, but I think Conor Benn will gain from that defeat, and I think he'll make it closer.
Wiggle room from the principle of having a higher weight class, or for the rehydration clause that he voluntarily signs up for his £1 million bonus?
It's money, isn't it? And that's why he'll take the rematch, and that's why it will happen. And it's a fight, again, that will gain a huge amount of attention because it's Eubank and Benn, and they gave us a classic first time around. Will it live up to it? Will it be quite as dramatic, the storyline, the eggs, the dad, everything? Maybe not, but there will be twists and turns, and it's a wonderful narrative. It's a fantastic rematch, and it's one we're looking forward to.
See, I disagree with the idea it was a classic, but we'll get back into that in a moment. Let's hear what Carl Frampton had to say the other day about the rematch itself.
If you're Chris Eubank, I would say yes, because of his age, and because of, it's about money at this stage of your career. If you're Conor Benn, on the other hand, I would say stay away from it. I just don't think you want to be involved in too many fights like that. And Conor Benn still has a chance to become a legitimate world champion in the welterweight or light middleweight division. So I think he should focus on that. He'll make a bag of money if he fights Chris Eubank again. Both of them will. But they already made a bag in their first fight. So how much money do you need? It's one of them ones. I think if Conor Benn and his team are sensible, I think maybe avoid the rematch. He could win the rematch, but it's going to be a hard fight.
Well, events have overtaken that sort of thinking, but what do you make of what Carl was saying in basic premise, Adam?
Yeah, Carl's brilliant. I love Carl as an analyst, really enjoying working with him. I think, look, Conor Benn could easily settle at a more natural weight, but he wanted this fight for a long time, and the public want this fight. And
the first one, yeah.
Yeah, but it was... okay, I know you don't think it was a classic.
I mean, Boots Ennis has gone up now from 147, so there's...
It wasn't a world title fight classic, but it was a fantastic, thunderous battle between two guys who didn't have to do what they did and did. And I think that they will go again. It will be round 13, and I think it's a fight that just has to happen.
What do you mean didn't have to do what they did? They orchestrated an opportunity off the legacy of their fathers with two fighters that have not done huge things in their careers. Chris has challenged for 2 world titles and lost in both occasions. Conor's never been at that level. And what was arriving at their opportunity was a huge amount of money for two fighters that haven't achieved the levels that would normally warrant this kind of return.
But have you seen either of them bare their souls like they did in April? I thought they were terrific.
I'm playing devil's advocate for the purpose of the conversation. Did they have any choice, Adam? The hullabaloo and the legacy of their two fathers and all the background noise and all the Disneyfication and all the scandal and all the debates about Conor Benn failing drugs tests, Chris Eubank having his view on the world and the way he sees things, the fights and the battles with the promoters, shutting everybody down. They had no choice but to go into that fight, surely with everything that was on offer and the expectation levels and the way this fight had been built up into this huge event. And then you've got these two gladiators, whatever I think of them, Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn. I spent time with both of them, and I can tell you which one I prefer, which is Nigel. But the fact of the matter is you've got these two great spectres. They couldn't have gone and done anything else, could they?
We have no control when that bell goes how good a fight is going to be. I was in Hull on Saturday night, Shakan Pitters, Brad Ray, European level, yes, but it was absolutely fabulous. They both gave everything. Conor Benn, Chris Eubank did exactly the same thing at the end of April, and they didn't need to. They went really deep, Simon, and for that I have huge respect for both of them.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, one of the alleged standout moments, and the producers say it's a standout moment, is the arrival of Chris Eubank Sr. Let's have a look at that.
He's here! And the crowd are going wild! Father and son reunited! Simply the best! And that is the picture of the year so far! Absolutely brilliant!
Now, the way the fight was curated and choreographed in terms of the build-up to the fight, of course that's going to be a moment. Whether he was incentivised to be there, we heard the backstory from Chris Eubank Sr. for 18 months about how this was an appalling set of circumstances, how he never wanted any part of it, how he felt it was legalised murder at one respect of his father, and then he turned his attitude towards the fact that Conor Benn shouldn't be in this fight. So with all that in mind and the spectacle that it became, and it was brilliant commentary from you when you saw it, and it really lifted it off the screen. I remember watching it the next day when I watched the fights. But when you've got that sort of backdrop, how are they going to create another narrative? We've had the egg slap. We've had the shutdown of Eddie. We've had the shutdown of Frank. We've had people being called scumbags. We've had all the arguments about whether he should and shouldn't be having this fight. We've had all the parental stuff. So you've got to have scriptwriters in Hollywood now writing out a narrative for these two boys to swallow, right?
Not really, because I think what they delivered on the night exceeded anything that any of us expected. You know, we remember the fathers. Absolutely.
Did it?
Absolutely, because they left their souls and they left everything in that ring.
Did you not think they were going to anyway?
No,
I did.
No, but
why?
Yeah, no, but
I didn't think it'd be like
whatever we would have thought, they have to deliver that and they have to do it. Chris Eubank Jr. in round 9 walked back to that corner and I thought, this kid's done it.
Yep.
And he showed something from somewhere, and that was one of the best 12th rounds of any contest I've seen. The way that they both just left it in there, how they both dug deep, the way that they dug deep. So I think now going into the return for the fan, they're going to go, well, of course we want to see this now. Like we don't need the pantomime build-ups to what we do because we know what they're going to deliver in the ring. And it will. Adam's right in what you say. It will kick off. Round 13 will be the beginning.
And the twists and turns and unpredictability of boxing as well. And we didn't know which way it was going to manoeuvre until fight night. Chris Eubank Sr. turning up was a genuine surprise, hence the reaction of Darren, Barry and I on commentary. We didn't think he was going to be there. That was brilliant. It was a masterstroke, and the ring walks were phenomenal. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what happens in the ring. And they delivered in bucket loads. And whether they can again is interesting. Yeah. Rematches often aren't quite as fiery as the first time because they've done that, but they may just be. Look at Beterbiev and Bivol in a different way. Their rematch was probably better than the first one.
Yeah, but they're world-level fighters.
Of course.
Right? And we're talking about the highest echelon.
Of course.
Is there anything that you see that Conor can do in this second fight, the pair of you, that's going to change the direction of travel. We've always assumed that because Chris Eubank was bigger and naturally at this weight or nearer this weight than Conor, it was always going to have that advantage. Now, we know that the idea behind the sentiments of stripping him down is disadvantageous, but is there anything that you can see in this fight that Conor does differently, given the fact that he isn't technically as good as Chris Eubank Jr., so we know that that deficiency exists? I debate whether he hits hard enough to get Chris Eubank out of his comfort zone. Is there anything that you two see that Conor does anything different that produces a different outcome?
Well, I think from Conor Benn's side that he's going to have more momentum. That inactivity may have played a part. He's younger, and he will come back bigger, better and stronger from that. But I can't see a different outcome. The only way that you get a different outcome is if Chris Eubank Jr. at 35 years of age, going back to 2011, has had that one fight too many, and it's taken something out of him. We've seen how he's struggling now to make the weight. 160 has been tough for him. You've got to go back to like 2015 when he was boxing the likes of George Groves in the World Boxing Super Series. Yeah, super middleweight. And he was strong then. The punch resistance was there. Yeah. When you drain the body down, and that would have taken its toll on him. If Eubank can deliver a performance like he did last time, 4 months ago, the outcomes are the same, but we just don't know what them effects are, and that's why the intrigue's there again.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, so moving on from Eubank and Benn, and let's start with your first prediction of events that have yet to be determined.
AJ and Wilder gets made, maybe December, I think.
Is that a wish or that's a belief that you think will really happen?
Bit of both. I was messaging Deontay back and forth around his comeback fight. Look, I was worried after the Zhilei Zhang and the Joe Parker defeats whether Deontay had anything left. He's come back. He's decided he wants to fight. He's only come back for the big names.
What do you make of him on the weekend?
He was okay. I mean,
it's your position, wasn't it?
It was a fight he had to win. He won it. He got the job done. He got rounds in. He wasn't particularly impressive. He wasn't diabolical. I mean, he was okay. And I think on the back of that, he's got back in the ring. He only wants the big fights. I think Wilder and AJ is a big possibility. It's a fight that's eluded us for a long time. AJ needs an opponent. December works.
I think, let's be honest here, Deontay Wilder at the weekend, I thought was very, very poor. Yep. He was boxing Terrell Herden, who was equally as poor.
Well, he was on hiding to nothing, wasn't he?
I mean, 7 rounds to get rid of an opponent like the way that he did, and the way that he was doing that, and flapping his arms around, and
we know what Deontay's about.
Yeah, but if you look at the performance, that's not the Deontay Wilder of old. You can't say that we saw anything there that we would have seen from the old Deontay, the one that boxed Tyson Fury, to suggest that he's anywhere near back to his best.
I don't think he is, but he's still a massive name in the division, and if he wants a big fight, AJ is waiting for a big fight, and it will have jeopardy in it because of his power.
Does Anthony Joshua fighting what we now think, and I'm paraphrasing, so you can use my words rather than assume that they're yours and you can blame them on me, but does AJ get anything from beating a busted flush of a Deontay Wilder?
I'd rather see Joshua fight Fury. I'd like to see that fight. I think that fight has got to happen within the next 6 to 9 months. For boxing. And I think the two of them need that to happen to sort of finish their careers. But if AJ wants to fight in December and Tyson's not prepared to come back, and we haven't maybe got the summer stadium or the spring stadium that we need here, then AJ Wilder works for me.
I know AJ's always wanted to box Deontay Wilder.
Is it a main event? Is it still considered to be a main event?
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a huge fight in boxing still. For people that sort of watch boxing occasionally, that is a huge fight still. You get AJ Wilder, AJ Fury. The timing's not right for AJ Fury right now.
No.
But Deontay Wilder is a fight that he's always wanted. He's always wanted to box the best of the modern era. Just to forget where they are.
Just to clarify, we would end the year with a big Saudi card with AJ Wilder topping it. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Really?
Why not?
Yeah.
Because Wilder is not there anymore. He's left the building. He's an ex-Wilder.
And Anthony Joshua's coming off
he's like the parrot sketch from Monty Python.
And
he's
AJ's coming off a devastating defeat to Daniel Dubois.
Sure.
And he needs to come back. He hasn't fought for a long time, and he will have been out, 15 months or something. You saw him recently in Ghana. He needs to get back in the ring. He's had his injuries. He's had his issues. He's older himself now. I think him and Wilder works.
For AJ, it's a perfect opponent to come back with, just because of the name.
And
nothing else.
I'm assuming that there's no parallel universe in either one of your minds where there's a modicum of doubt that Anthony Joshua deals with him. Because if he doesn't, I mean, we're talking about legacies being
listen,
damaged
I think if Anthony Joshua, going on Deontay Wilder's recent form for the last few fights, we're not just talking a couple of months here, going on his recent form, if Anthony Joshua can't beat Deontay Wilder convincingly
hangs
now,
up the gloves.
He's got to hang up the gloves.
The last time we saw Deontay Wilder do anything meaningful was Robert Helenius, wasn't it?
It was, and I think that the Fury trilogy has taken a huge amount out of Deontay and out of
Nobody
Tyson
saw it coming, though, did they?
Because
nobody saw the decline in Deontay. Nobody saw the performance against Joseph Parker or against Zhilei Zhang, did they?
And Fury was good against Usyk, so it's slightly different. But that trilogy was really, really tough on both of them. But I think Deontay comes back, he fights AJ, a big fight. You're right. If AJ doesn't deal with Deontay, you worry if there's a future, but I think he will. And I think it's got that jeopardy because Deontay Wilder, whatever anyone says about his form now, then, or yesterday, is the biggest single puncher we've had in boxing since Ernie Shavers.
Prediction number 2, Spencer, where you go?
July 19th, Wembley Stadium, Daniel Dubois beats Alexander Usyk.
How do you get to a point where you, besides the emotive connection with thinking that Daniel is in a better place than he was before, there's been no decline in Usyk, and we know we've got Chris Eubank in the background leaving him as a promoter, but none of us think that's going to really affect Usyk. I've described Daniel Dubois as an irresistible force that might just be coming up against the immovable object. How do you reach the point where you are aligning upon Daniel Dubois beating Usyk? And we've been wrong every time we've put against Usyk, it's gone the other way.
I was going to say, firstly, do not agree with me because you do get them ones wrong.
I do agree with you, by the way.
Oh, you do?
I think that's because I want it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, look.
So you're both picking Dubois?
Absolutely. So I know Daniel Dubois. I see him work from day to day. I know what they're working on tactically. Go back to 2023 when Dubois lost to Alexander Usyk, and you say, all right, yeah, look, they seem quite far apart there. He had his moments, Daniel, but Usyk was sort of leagues above him then. Alexander Usyk has not got better since then. There's a lot of miles on the clock since then. There's no sign of deterioration. But what I'm saying is Daniel Dubois is a different character, a different animal from then.
You're saying that Usyk has not got better since fighting Daniel Dubois, even though he's dealt with Fury.
Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't mean he's improved. I think the two fights...
It got worse either, does it?
No. The 2 fights with Fury, I'm just doing this. It's a calculated gamble. I think the 2 fights with Fury would have put some miles on the clock with Usyk. And Daniel Dubois, since the Usyk loss, has improved dramatically. And I mean dramatically, not just physically, mentally as well. This is a different fight to the first one. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. Before we get you involved, Adam, let's hear what Duke McKenzie, 3-time freeweight world champion, had to say about this very subject matter.
Again, it has to be Usyk for me.
How does he win?
I think he probably stops Dubois late in this fight. Because Dubois, like I say, Dubois has to make this fight into an absolute bloodbath. He's got to hound and chase Usyk, and in doing so, he's going to leave himself open because he's going to fight at a frenetic pace. The question has to be, can he keep the pace up for the 12 rounds? And then he's got to hope at the end of the 12 rounds, Usyk is busted up in such a way that the referee could potentially stop the fight. I just don't see it now.
I mean, I have to say, when you listen to Duke McKenzie, he's very rarely wrong. Do you agree with his assessment there?
It's a very accurate assessment. I think Alexander Usyk is the best fighter in the world. And I've been in training camp. I've seen him up close. I've seen what he goes through. Before the Fury fight, I thought he would probably have the better of Tyson in that second fight. And I think the rounds, as they ticked on, he was just more and more superior. I thought Tyson actually boxed really well second time. Look, Alexander Usyk is a phenomenon. I agree with Spencer that Daniel Dubois is a much, much better mentally and physically athlete, fighter, person, maturity than he was a couple of years ago. He's on a fantastic run. Those wins, that gutting out win over Jarrell Miller to stop him. Hrgovic, again, taking the licks in the first 3 rounds. And Joshua, of course, absolutely phenomenal.
But this is a whole different animal.
This is a whole different animal. And look, he has to, as Duke said, he has to just keep the pace at him. He's got to work the body. He's got to take risks. Yes, he's got power. He's a phenomenal fighter, Daniel Dubois. However, Usyk's so clever. He's so good in rematches. He's so good on his feet. He's going to have to hope that he's on the decline, and I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think the decline's it's a strong word. I'm saying that Daniel Dubois' improvement has been incredible. Like, when you watch him day to day, strategically, Simon, what they're going through in the gym, the things that they're working on, you know, they're watching videos back and looking at the strengths and the weaknesses of Alexander Usyk. And you're right in what you're saying so many ways. Like, this guy's the best of the modern era. There's no doubt about that. But you look at what Daniel's working on, the game plan that they've got, and let me tell you, he's got a real shot in this fight. The kid has improved dramatically, but they've seen stuff that I like, and that's why I'm just going, I think.
But it's about the ability, seeing something and being able to execute it are two different things, aren't they?
100%, Simon. I totally agree with that.
Is it a case, boys, that Daniel Dubois has to be the very best version of Daniel Dubois on the day, and maybe Usyk has to be 2 or 3% off for that outcome to be that we are advocating?
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
And what I like about Daniel is that he's been to Wembley in front of 96,000 and he's done a job.
Didn't even blink,
Didn't even blink on AJ. The problem is that was his last fight. Usyk was active in December. He didn't have that match-up with Joe Parker in February. I wonder if being out of the ring might affect him just that little bit, or it could tune him up and make him... He's very hungry. He's a much better specimen than he was 2 years ago. He's learnt from that. I've so much respect for Daniel Dubois. The fact he's come back from those defeats to Joe Joyce, to Alexander Usyk, and he's the best version of himself going into July the 19th. He has a chance, a live chance in this fight, but he's got to stop Usyk. Chisora was the one person, and I thought Usyk won that fairly comfortably.
He showed a blueprint for it,
but Chisora was the one person that closed the gap, all of that sort of stuff. Maybe Dubois can do that. Maybe he can work the body. Maybe Usyk will just not have what he has. But I just think I just think he'll have trained incredibly hard again, and I've seen the footwork, and I think he just paints a picture brilliantly, and in rematches as well. He just he finds a way.
If Daniel were to win in the pantheon of great outcomes, where would you rate this?
Right up there. I mean, right up there. He's never lost Usyk as a professional. You know, a cruiserweight legend, a heavyweight legend, Olympic gold medalist in this country. You've got to look at the big upsets in world boxing, the Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson, the Andy Ruiz, AJ, those sort of things.
Lloyd Hannigan, Don Curry.
Hannigan Curry, John H. Tracy and Napoli's. It's up there, isn't it?
Absolutely. It fits right up there. You know, I think if Daniel Dubois can pull this off, and
as high as that sort of comparison.
Yeah, when you're looking at a guy that's been...
He's going to become, if he wins, he becomes the undisputed heavyweight champion at Wembley Stadium against the best fighter of this era. Yeah. It has to be.
It'd be interesting to see, before we go to your second prediction, Adam, it'd be interesting to see the difference is that whilst he goes in as an underdog, he walked into Wembley with everyone waiting to anoint, I've said it a number of times, waiting to anoint Anthony. The crowd will be not waiting to anoint Usyk, they'll be waiting to support Daniel Dubois. And it'll be interesting to see how his mental approach reacts to the fact that he'll be heavily supported in this one, rather than going in there, people wondering how he's going to cope with Anthony Joshua while everyone's waiting for Anthony Joshua to accede to his rightful throne.
But the crowd will be interesting, because I think Usyk's a bit of a hero as well here, and I think he's very well respected in England.
I think
rightfully so, by the way.
I feel like Daniel's going in here now, and he knows what he's going into in this one. I've talked to the team about that as well. Like, they know what they're expecting. He went in there, he looked like a gladiator walking into the ring. He surprised everyone because we thought he was going to freeze.
Yeah, he did.
This time, he's going in there. When you speak to him, right, when you have, like, conversations about it, and he's looking at the arch down at the gym where we train, and you see it, and he goes through all this stuff. He's out there regularly watching it. He's one of those guys that works like that. When you speak to him, there's a little twinkle in his eye, this little smoke that comes on his face where you go, he actually really fancies this job, and that makes him a dangerous
Last
guy.
time I was up at the house,
I mean,
it was the AJ fight was just on repeat. It was just like he was almost living it, and I think he really fancies this Daniel Dubois.
So he should. Otherwise, he'll have no chance, will he? Look, let's go on to your second prediction.
Yes, second prediction, the trilogy. Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev gets made. I think maybe December, and maybe with AJ Wilder. How about that as a doubleheader?
Yeah. OK, Spence, your third and final pick.
I think third and final pick is another one that's going to be an absolute barnstormer. We get Canelo going in against Terence Crawford, and I've picked Terence Crawford to pull off the upset there at Canelo's weight. And you're going to ask me why I believe.
And I'm going to ask you why in a minute, but obviously the Canelo Crawford roadshow has rolled into town. Let's hear from both men.
Terence, is that true? Did Turkey Al-Sheikh ask you to spice things up? Turkey didn't ask me to do nothing. I didn't touch him.
You know.
Listen.
Hey, we know, buddy. We know.
First and foremost, somebody was in the room saying that I was scared of them. So I stepped to him and showed him who was the boss of this fight. I ain't scared.
Hey, I never say that. Your uncle say that, not me.
I ain't scared of You're going to find that out. As you seen, the last press conference,
we'll see.
when I walked you down, when you were supposed to be the bigger man.
Yeah, hey, you say that because you're fighting with nobody, and you obviously look like you're a great fighter. But you find out September 13th, this is going to be different for you.
And it's going to be different from you as well.
I never know what to make of these sort of things because I think it's all a sort of puff and stuff. And I mean, obviously, Canelo can't say to Terence Crawford, you fought nobody any more than he can say it to him. But what makes you lean towards Crawford, Spence?
Look, both guys have gone through the weights. Yes, this fight is at super middleweight. Terence Crawford jumping up from welterweight to super middleweight, and that's where the discrepancy lies there, where people saying, oh, can he do that? Can he jump up? Canelo was a welterweight himself that has gone through the weights, right? Terence Crawford come up from lightweight, and you look at what he's achieved, and you go, when you get great fighters of great eras, and Terence Crawford is that guy, a guy that I believe as welterweight would live with any welterweight in any era. That's my beliefs on it all. Is as good as he is, orthodox and southpaw, switch hitter, very heavy-handed, 31 of his 40 come inside the distance, but is very educated in what he does. And he may just take the fight to Canelo,
he can't
like
stop,
he said there.
Do you think he can stop Canelo?
Well, he's got the punch power to do that and the shot selection to do that for sure. Look, Canelo is very durable in his own right. You know, look at the fights that he had, you know, with Triple G and the punches that he's actually taken and the punch resistance he's got. You think Crawford wins on points. That's where you save money's at.
Which is what you and I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that he's got that all-round boxing ability to be able to... For me, I think that Canelo may be found a little bit too one-dimensional in this fight.
That's what I was thinking.
His shot selection now, Canelo, is everything loads up. Hook. The punch, putting the punches together in bunches. They were the Canelo of old, and I don't think that we get that again against someone as slick and controls the space the way that Crawford does.
I mean, there's a lot of noise, and we're seeing all these images of him sitting across a table with Turkey, Al-Sheikh, and whatever else.
And the dinners
what are you
and
making
all
of
that.
this
Yeah, look, it is what it is, right? It's a huge, huge fight, and that's what matters. It's the best fighting the best. It's what we want to see. It's what Turkey Al-Sheikh's come in and done with boxing. I'm thinking of Manny Pacquiao. He started as a light fly, a strawweight light fly, and he went all the way through the weights. I love fighters who come up through the weights in recent times. Obviously, a Mayweather, a De La Hoya, many that have come through. Crawford, a 4-weight champion. He jumps up now. He's got the skill set. I just believe...
But when those guys jump up, Adam, do they jump into a class where they've got this elite individual that's dominating that division every time? So if you're talking about Manny Pacquiao going through the weight classes, they go up against these beasts every time they get to the next
Not
weight
always,
class.
which is what's amazing about this fight. But Canelo has been around forever. You know, I was there at his debut. I remember when he was a lighter fighter. He's gone up as well. He is a force. He is an unbelievable legend of this era. But remember, Bivol beat him.
Yes.
Mayweather beat him. And he's not looked great of late, OK? He won't want to lose in September in Vegas with his fans. He will, again, like we said with Beterbiev, he will do everything possible to get this victory. I just feel...
He can live with losing to Bivol, can't he? Because he's going up weight classes. But someone coming up to his weight class and beating him is going to be a kick up the arse.
I just feel, and there's something in the air, I think, here about Terence Crawford. He's always been known in the trade. He's done amazing things. We all know about him. But out there, they don't really know about him. This, on Netflix... I think this is his moment. I think this is the time where we actually find... The world finds out how good Terence Crawford is.
Now, let's get on to your final pick, Adam. Go ahead.
My final pick, just let me look at it later. There's so much going on here. Opetaia and Zurdo Ramirez to fight. We saw Zurdo Ramirez over the weekend. We saw Opetaia recently. What a cracking fight that is. And let's have it this year.
Yeah, I mean, in the cruiserweight division, it's the must-see fight, isn't it? I mean, we're looking at this division, and with all due respect to it, it's not the most impressive division, is it? I mean, the beast that we think's in it. I mean, obviously, we were surprised at Zurdo Ramirez. We thought that Chris Smith had handpicked him because that was the way he was going to go. We found out after the first round that there was a lot more to Zurdo Ramirez than we anticipated in the cruiserweight division. I mean, what did you make of Ramirez's performance on the weekend?
What, against Dorticus? Look, I thought it was good. You know, Dorticus is a good fighter in his own right, and I think that he dealt with him well. He's got a nice fluidity around his work. His shot selection, he keeps pushing on. He is there to be hit though. For me, Opetaia, for me, the monster of the division, and I think he goes up and he does things at heavyweight as well. That's the next fight. I think Zurdo mentioned that he wants Opetaia next.
Well, he called it out, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got your mindset. I mean, he called it out. Can you make a case, either of you, for him beating Opetaia?
I think he's a very, very classy fighter, Zurdo Ramirez. I think Dorticus was a little bit past it. I think he got him at the right time, and Ramirez has been brilliant since he's come up in weight. I just think Jai's special. I think he's a very, very talented fighter who I think one day will go up to heavyweight, and I think he'll
So we all
beat
think
Ramirez.
that. Right? We all think that. But so this idea that Jai Opetaia is so formidable, is it seeded in real orthodoxy, or are we elevating him?
I think that's a very good question. I think you beat what was in front of you, and Jai had a tough time against Breda's first time around, and the second time he was doing really well. Then he had moments off, but he was going sort of over old ground. I think you'll see the best of Jai Opetaia when he's in with the best fighters. I really do. I think he's a very, very talented guy. I think he's already on the sort of edges of the pound for pound list, and I think that he goes on and beats Ramirez. I think he unifies the division, and I think he'll go up, and I think he'll be interesting at heavyweight.
Any space in this conversation for Badu Jack anywhere?
What, as an opponent?
Yeah.
If Jai Opetaia wants to pick up another belt, there's that conversation.
He beats
WBC belt is nice, but
it does, isn't it?
Timing. I think that Jai Opetaia. I don't think you can take anything away from Marius Bredas, by the way, in those fights.
Very good fight.
I was giving him lots of props.
Because he was a great fighter. If you look at the fight that he had against Alexander Usyk, he's a great fighter.
When he got back in the ring against Jai Opetaia, who was in formidable form, he was out for 2 years.
Yeah, I understand, but he's still a great fighter.
Absolutely.
Some fighters can have that. The greats can do that. Sugar Ray Leonard jumping up the weight divisions. Boxing Agler been out for 5 years or so.
They can do that.
They can do that.
But I think Jai has had one or two lighter touches as well. But he's had some good names, and I think he deserves to be where he is. But this is the fight he needs.
Yeah, and all roads from that point lead to the heavies.
Yes.
I think Jai spoke about that himself. He said once he cleans up that cruiserweight division, he says, I'm off, I'm up, I want to go into the heavyweights.
He's not Usyk, though.
No, he's not. That's my point. So do you believe he can be prosperous in the heavyweights?
Will he become a world heavyweight
That's
champion?
what I'm asking.
Not sure at this stage.
Right.
Can't answer that question yet.
Big problem for him at the moment is we've got a young kid in Moses Atuma that's coming through.
Problem.
And if you weigh that up, you look at that and you go, timing might not be just right. Moses is going to be the next heavyweight star.
So, my favourite subject, Jake Paul, on that side of the boxing world. Fights are what I would best describe as a washed-up, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Potentially getting ranked at cruiserweight. What did you make of all this, Spence?
Well, let's start off with getting ranked at cruiserweight. He does not deserve a ranking off boxing Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. going off this performance. Julio Cesar Chavez did not do anything for 8 rounds. He literally covered up, done anything. We saw a little something in round 9, and then in round 10 he decides to open up and do something. There you go. I don't like it. I know there's lots of stuff online saying this fight is fixed. Why didn't he do anything? Is he getting better, Jake Paul? But look, he's getting better. Of course he's getting better, but you can't beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and then get a world ranking and get a world title shot. They're talking about Badu Jack and timing could be good there, but come on, look, where's the photography? Where's the respect in this sport for anyone that gets ranked off going off?
It's about money, isn't it? When we say money,
this is an entertainment business, and Jake Paul is going to fight at some point for a world title.
But it has to be
they're managing it, right?
Yeah, but Adam, hold on a minute. Yes, it is an entertainment business, but come on, the kids that work their asses off and get in there and have been putting themselves in that position. You can't just go because you've got a huge online presence that you get a world title shot, because that makes a mockery of the sport.
It does.
I understand, of course. I understand what you're saying, and I think all the fighters in those top 10 and top 15 are earning their places. But you and I know that money rules this, and Jake Paul provides that. And I don't think he should fight for a world title next. Of course not. I think that he got the job done against a very old and, you said washed up, Julio Cesar Chavez. Yeah, look, the Tyson fight.
It was an exhibition.
Exhibition fights, whatever. They're very clever. and they will navigate their way into a world title shot. I think he should fight someone.
Do you think
a former world champion or
I
someone first?
want him to go into the ring with someone that's going to hit him. And I want him, to some extent, to what Piers Morgan said the other day when he got all arsehole clever with Piers and started to tell him about what a wonderful YouTuber he was and how big his audience was. I want to see Jake Paul have it put upon him.
So who should he fight next?
All right,
I don't know.
I'll give you
someone
one.
that's going to hit him back.
I'll give you one who he should fight next. We just talked about Dorticus. He's just been beat there. You said, he looks slightly old and maybe past his best. Would Jake Paul beat Dorticus right now?
I don't think so, but he could have a shot at him.
I tell you what,
but Dorticus is not the world champion. Obviously, he's fallen short.
Fine, Spencer.
So
let's hear from Sideshow Bob. Sorry, Jake Paul himself.
Now, I know you're after a world title, but if that doesn't materialize, I know the Tommy Fury name has been floated about. Is there any other fighters who may not be world champions that you're looking to face?
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Joshua.
I think that's the main one that, we've talked a lot about is if it's not for the title, it's looking at Tommy, if he's reasonable, and then Anthony Joshua. And he's adamant that he wants to make that fight happen at the end of 2026. And we're going to meet with Matchroom while we're in New York to promote the greatest trilogy in the history of boxing, Taylor Serrano 3.
Hey, last question, Nikisa. This one's for you because I was going to bring up the Joshua thing. I know you've talked to Eddie Hearn in the past. Do you think they're keen on taking that fight? And Jake, this is also to you. Moving back up to heavyweight, how did you feel coming back down and moving back up?
No, I'm definitely not a heavyweight, but I'm still going to take the challenge. But, you look at Deontay Wilder, he was beating these guys weighing 215 pounds. So anything is granted, he's like 6'6" or something, but anything's possible. And so I like the challenge. People, that's the criticism. Fight someone in their prime, who's a beast. I think people just want to see me lose. That's really what the message is behind it all. And Anthony Joshua is an insane fight, but I want that challenge. We've been DMing back and forth. He wants to make it happen. He called me up, and it's looking very likely for next year.
See, I think he has a point, but I don't think he knows the point that he's really making. I don't think people want to see him lose. I think people want to see him in a real fight with someone that's going to really punch him back and earn his money.
I think both. I think people want to see him in a proper fight, and I think they want to see him lose.
If he goes into a live one and he wins, people are going to have more begrudging respect for him.
Guys, let's put this to bed. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua right now. I mean, come on. I get what he's doing, Jake Paul, but come on, let's be real about this.
It can't be any parallel universe where Anthony Joshua will take it seriously.
No, come on. Look, the only reason Anthony Joshua would take that fight, if they're having no serious conversation, is it's like someone giving you a bag full of money for nothing.
No,
because we're talking about levels here.
Levels. Boxing's about levels and about timing, right?
I know what you're going to say. In 5 years' time, if Anthony Joshua goes into retirement, comes back and wants to do an exhibition fight, you can see that from that.
Of course.
But Anthony Joshua now, going in now, it's not.
Jake Paul needs to fight a couple of maybe former faded world champions like Julio Cesar Chavez, possibly a little bit more, that someone's going to come to really fight him. And then put him in with a Badou Jack who's a little bit older. Put him in with someone and let's see what happens.
Hold on. Jake Paul doesn't need to fight any of these old, faded, retired fighters and the Mike Tysons. You see Julio Cesar Chavez. If he's talking about being a legitimate world title challenger and being ranked in WBC, WBA, then
fight someone in the top 10.
Put him in the top 20, the top 15. Let's see if you can really fight, because
but he isn't,
you can't go off the back of that.
But Spence, let's be clear about it. He's a very clever young man, and he isn't really talking about winning a world title. He's talking about, like he did with Piers on his show, which is basically, I'm promoting the pay-per-view on this, I'm going to get hundreds of thousands and millions of people watching this. Ka-ching, job done, that's what I've done. Yeah. And if I'm unlucky enough to get a punch in the mouth, well, I'll take it. I'll get on with it.
But Simon, where is the trajectory? Where is the finish of this? It is surely for
a bank balance.
Yeah, but is he going to have, at the end, a shot at a title, a shot at a massive name? He'll lose.
Well, if the WBC have their way, they'll curate that opportunity because they can see that the revenue from it is worth something to them.
So it'll be some sort of vacant belt against a faded...
Well, you mentioned it. I mean, you could potentially see him in a fight against Badou Jack, couldn't you?
I mean, surely for the sake of the sport, though, with these governing bodies, the governing bodies that will allow that to happen without any merit, you've got to box somebody, you've got to box some form of sort of contender to get that shot. Otherwise, it puts boxing into disrepute, surely. You can't just go, these kids come from nowhere to get a world title shot above everybody. I understand what he's doing, Jake, and I think it's great what he's doing.
Yes.
I think,
for him, yeah.
For him. Yeah. It's fantastic. And he's bringing new eyeballs to the sport.
Absolutely.
And all that. I understand that.
My kids are loving this.
Come on.
So they may not be trade boxing fans like we are. We want to see the top 10, top 15 get their opportunity. But there are new eyeballs on the sport. They've chosen KSI, Logan, Jake. They've chosen boxing. They could have chosen something else.
That's interesting. I mean, Jake Paul's not in any other business beside the Jake Paul business, is he?
No.
And so the reality, if we do genuinely believe, and if it is proven to be the case, that more eyes are being put on the prize, and as a result of it, more participation is coming into the sport, then we should get past our sort of holier than thou
Simon,
attitude.
they are putting on a terrific female card in New York, MVP, in 2 weeks' time, and that is brilliant.
And what he's doing for women's boxing is fantastic.
Amazing.
He has brought that to the forefront for sure. So you've got to respect him for that. But come on, mate,
As a
let's get it
fighter?
right. No, world title shots, you have to earn that. You can't just be given it.
This is really good work from Catterall.
The Warrior is strong.
So sharp. Best shot of the fight so far.
His wisdom, an amalgamation of precedent.
This is the kind of action that we wanted.
He is rather fueled by divine inspiration, ascending from the heart. For his true assignment is to deliver evidence of superior behavior.
OK, boys, live on DAZN this weekend, we've got Harlem Eubank versus our mate Jack Catterall. That's going to be an interesting fight. But let's have a listen to Kalle Sauerland and his views on the fight.
He's stepped up little levels, and now it's time. We felt it was the right fight. We were ready to roll with Azim as well last year. And we shall find out. It's not, I can make the big promoter talk here. I can say, look, this is the next Eubank, blah, blah, blah. But really, it's about next weekend, and it's about his performance. After that, boot tennis. It's a great division. It puts him right up there. You've got obviously Conor Benn, more or less his natural weight after the couple of Eubank fights. But one thing just on the Eubank name, this is Mr. Humble. Yeah, this is he's got a lot of similarities with the other Eubanks, but he is. And I've worked, as we all know, very closely with the Eubank family since a long time. I had some great times with Junior, great times, and wish him all the best. But at the same time, this is, to work with Harlem, he's so humble and he listens, and he really, to learn, to listen is to learn, and especially in our sport.
I think this is an interesting fight, and I mentioned it before. What was also interesting is the pivot in Kalle Sauerland. In the interview that he was doing on the show, he was talking about fighter welfare and the credibility of the sport, which is the same Kalle Sauerland, which was talking about, of course, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank 2 years ago fighting one another with certain substances in Conor's system because he didn't have a concern about it. So it's wonderful to see that he's had an epiphany. This is an interesting fight, isn't it? I mean, I don't really know about Harlem in terms of this level. Jack Catterall, we do know about Jack Catterall. We all feel for Jack that ultimately he should have been a 4-belt undisputed super lightweight. Mm-hmm. He had to go the hard route. He'd fight Linares, he's fighting Regis Prograis. He has one fight too many against Arnold Barbosa, and all of a sudden he's out of the mix again for an opportunity. But he's going up a weight class. How do we make this fight
We love this fight, don't we? Harlem Eubank and Jack Catterall. I think it's an absolutely intriguing, fascinating
fight. Is he ready, Harlem, for this level?
Well, that's
what we're going to find out.
That's the reason why we love this fight.
I think he's got everything to give Jack Catterall a really, really tough night's work. He's got the weight advantage. He's undefeated. He's humble, as Kalle said. And I think he could just be in the right place at the right time. It is a risk. Jack Catterall has fought at a much higher level. He's a beautiful boxer if you give him time. And he's got a fantastic corner in Jamie Moore and Nigel Travers. They will have done their homework on Harlem Eubank. He's definitely got the experience. And this sport, as we said earlier, is about levels and about timing. The timing could be right for Harlem. Is he at that level? We don't know.
But Catterall, in of himself, right, he's lost to Arnold Barbosa. So ultimately, we know the Josh Taylor loss is an unfortunate one, which really isn't a blemish on his career, because ultimately, whilst it's a loss on his record, most conventional wisdom says Jack Catterall won that. We've seen impressive performances against Linares. We saw impressive performances against Regis Prograis. So why is Jack taking this fight up a weight class, putting his name, lending his name to Harlem Eubank? Or is it, in fact, that Harlem Eubank is lending his name to Jack Catterall?
Jack was one-paced against Arnold Barbosa Jr. Something wasn't right. He's gone up in weight. Maybe that's what he needed to do. So I think it's just a great fight for the pair of them. I really do. I think it's a Eubank name, so it helps. But Harlem is different. And I think he deserves this opportunity. And we'll find out if he's good enough, because we know how good Jack is.
And Jack gets that opportunity as well, stepping up to 147. Like he unfortunately has always fallen into the space of who needs him, who wants him club, the chairman of that, if you like.
Jack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, only in recent times.
No, that's what I'm saying, in recent times, because of the Josh Taylor performance. So what I'm saying is he's gone up here to, for that opportunity to fight, because Harlem Eubank's doing his own thing at the moment. He's coming off that Tyrone McKenna fight, and you look at that, McKenna was a tough kid. He stopped him in 10 rounds, and you go, there's improvements there. This is an interesting fight because there's momentum around Eubank, but Jack Catterall has confidence in his own ability. I think it's a good fight, this one. You can't underestimate Jack Catterall or say he's on any form of decline going off the Barboza fight, because that was a close fight as well. That could have gone easy.
It was close.
Yeah, it was close.
He just didn't do enough.
He just didn't perform.
OK, with all that to one side, how do you see the fight playing out?
I think that Catterall will start favourite because he's proven.
Yeah.
And I think Harlem Eubank, we don't know what sort of level he's at. You can't just go off the McKenna fight and say, well, like Jack Catterall is a world-class...
You're always the one that tells me you can only go on the last performance.
Yeah, no, listen, but I'm talking about Jack Catterall's a world-class operator.
At a different weight class.
Harlem Eubank's not a world-class operator unless we haven't seen that. He's not proven that. So, on the basis of that, going off your last performances... You go with Jack Catterall.
All about the first couple of rounds and whether Jack Catterall gets into...
He's going to come back a bit.
No, I'm processing Josh Taylor. No, I'm processing Josh Taylor stepping up to 147 against Echo Esserman.
And he fell short,
right?
Yeah. So it's difficult at this weight. And it all depends on the first 6-9 minutes of whether Jack Catterall gets into a rhythm. If he gets into a rhythm and those feet are working and the southpaw and he gets that distance right, it's going to be a tough night for Harlem Eubank. If he doesn't, if Harlem has a good early success... I think it could be a hard night for Jack, really hard night.
The difference with Josh Taylor stepping up to 147 is Josh Taylor hadn't looked his best for a couple of fights, for a few fights, whereas Jack Catterall...
But we thought that was because it was weight, though, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. No, but that's what I'm saying. So now it tells us something different.
And Echo's a beast as well. He's a beast, different fighter, strong, physically tough. But Harlem, this is an opportunity.
It's a great fight
that he's got.
But what happens to the winners and losers in this fight? I mean, for me, if Jack were to lose this fight, I think it's more of a blow for Jack losing it than it is... for Harlem, isn't it? So it's a shot to nothing for him. What does it mean? I can't understand what he gains. The only thing I can assume is that Sam's got him a big payday. But Kalle Sauerland was saying, it ain't life-changing money.
Risk and reward for Jack Catterall is not a good business move, like you say, because if Calle's right in what he says and saying it's not life-changing money, but we've got the fight, you go... What does he get out of it, beating Harlem Eubank, who's unproven at that level? So, look, for Harlem Eubank, it's a win-win. Yes,
it's all
please.
Upside.
Because you're going against all upside, your weight division as well. So, look, it's a calculated gamble from Team Catterall. They must fancy the job, but it is a high-risk fight.
And without that pressure on the shoulders of Harlem Eubank, who's an intelligent guy and he's got nothing to lose, it makes him very, very dangerous. And Jack's got to win this fight. He has to. Home crowd, the favourite, the man that's performed at that level and needs this victory badly. But for Eubank, fights with nice and relaxed, and he's got a real shot at this. Great fight.
If Jack were to lose, do you think that would be it for him?
No.
No, I think he'll try and rebuild again. I'm sure he'll try and rebuild again, but it's just a much tougher road back.
Right. Well, thanks, fellas. That's it for episode 127 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver and Adam Smith. We'll see you next week.